Well, we looked at what is DNA, and we said that DNA was part of a chromosome, but why are chromosomes important? Okay, we know that chromosomes contain the DNA, but why is it important that they're in chromosomes? Other than the fact, probably, that we can't fit all that DNA if it's all just unwound. We have to coil them all up so they're highly condensed, right? But let's have a look here. We've got our little hermit crab, right? Hermit crabs have 254 chromosomes in every single cell, right? Humans and potatoes, believe it or not, have 46 chromosomes, right? So we don't have that many at all. A chimp has 48, very close to us. A fruit fly has eight giant chromosomes. And a species of fern has 1,260. So you can see that with different organisms, they have different number of chromosomes. And that is one reason, why we cannot interbreed between species. Because for a start, you need to have the same number of chromosomes. They need to pair up properly, right? So that's the first reason. That's a big fundamental reason there that two different species can't combine to make a new species, is because they have different numbers of chromosomes. They have to have the same number of chromosomes. And then, of course, those chromosomes have to be very, 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 very similar, if not identical. So that is just something to be aware of. So it's pretty cool. So these chromosomes all have the basic function. And the basic function is that they allow the transfer of genetic information from one generation to the next. So let's write that down. Okay, so they transfer the information from an individual to their offspring to allow the continuation of the species. So that's one of the fundamental important points there when we're connecting it with evolution. Okay. All right, so let's look at a little bit more detail and another graphic to illustrate this idea of chromosomes. We know that chromosomes are highly condensed. They're generally an X structure, okay? And where those X's tend to meet in the middle, we call that the centromere. We also have a single side of a chromosome and another single side of a chromosome. When we have a single part of a chromosome, so not the double, we call it a chromatid. So a chromosome is made up of two chromatids, okay, and they're connected together at the centromere. We have this, I've left this label here called a telomere, which is really interesting. This section is the tips of our chromatids. And when you start looking in more detail with genetics, that's so interesting because it actually controls cell division, right? How quickly and when cells divide to make new ones. Very, very interesting information going on there. But if we uncoil the DNA, we can see we uncoil it, and then we have a word here called a gene. Now what that is, that's just telling you that you have a certain segment. Okay, so I've tried to put a definition there that's a bit general. It's a segment of DNA with a specific base sequence that codes for a particular trait or characteristic. Okay, the more biology you do, the more specific you can make that definition. But basically at the moment we're going to go extremely basic and then build up from that. So this is a gene, it has a specific sequence, and that sequence codes for a characteristic. So let's say eye color. So we might have a section here, right? We might say, okay, this location here is the gene for eye color. We might have another gene down here that might code for hair color. Okay, this gene down here may code for something else. It may code for, let's say, a protein that's in your liver, right? We might have another gene over here that has information to make sure that it builds, a cardiac muscle cell. So the whole point I'm trying to get here is that specific sections of the DNA have a specific purpose, which we call a gene, and those genes have a specific order of bases. Here they are. And that order will determine a particular characteristic. Now, the more biology you learn, you start to modify that definition and start to see a little bit more in depth about that, but we're going to keep it at this level just for the moment. Okay, so that is that one. Let's look on to the last slide here, because we're looking at why are chromosomes important. We've already said they're important because of the fact they carry genetic information, that they code for characteristics, and that they allow those characteristics to be passed on to the next generation. Well, they can do something else, right, as this last point here. Now, if I got all of your chromosomes and I organized them in a nice, neat arrangement, they would actually pair up according to size and the genes that they code for. So I'd have pair number 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., all the way down to pair number 22. And then we have a 23rd pair. Remember we said that in humans have 23 pairs, which is 46 in total. So that's my 22nd pair. Now I'm either this pair here, XY, or I am XX. So this 23rd pair will determine what type of sex you are. If you are male, you will have an XY chromosome. If you are a female, you have an XX chromosome. In most cases, right? So in most cases of the human population, to be male, you will have an XY, and if you're female, you have an XX, right? So we get 23 from mum, 23 from dad. So if I could colour these in, and I should have done that with the graphic, but let's just see if this will work a little bit. So if I have one of these comes from mum, and then the other one from dad. Then pair number 2, one comes from mum, the other one from dad. Pair number 3, one from mum, one from dad. All the way. So when we pair them up, we find that of these pairs, one always comes from the mother, one always comes from the father. Okay? So, and we'll learn more about that further on in this topic, and you may have come across that in the past, but half comes from the mum, half comes from the dad. In fact, half are in the ova, okay, and the other half are in the sperm. So when they unite in fertilization, we have our complete complement. So we know those two there. Each chromosome pair is up to its partner, have the same genes on it. Okay, so if these is my pair here, and we call them as a pair a homologous pair, all right. If this is the gene for eye color, and that's the gene for eye color from mum, let's just say for the moment she's little b's to say that she's got blue eyes. And if this pairs up with the chromosome from dad, then the eye color gene has to be in the same location, but he may be brown. So we'll do that as capital B. So he may be brown eyes, so he's got these capital B's there. The gene from mum is little b, and they pair up together like that, and we'll learn more about the genetics of that in a later video. So that's it for this video about why chromosomes are important. Once again, lots of information. Make sure you got this information down, that you've got it highlighted, that you've got notes added, you've got diagrams in pencil, and you can explain it to a friend. See you in the next video.